I want to say, I hold your interview skills to be among the greatest. I'm definitely not alone with that. You are definitely known for your incredible interviews.
Thank you.
So my question to you is, what is your research process like?
Yeah, so it is what it looks like. It's just elbow grease. You know, that's the thing about Hot Ones. It is just by design a labor-intensive show. And I think that it's just as important to do it myself, you know, and not that I do it all by myself. Like at this point, I've got like my little brother doing dossiers, and then Chris Schoenberger, who's my creative partner in all this. What we'll do is we'll divide and conquer. So I'll send him all the profiles and local paper stories and magazine articles and whatever that I'm going to read. And with the podcast that I'm going to listen to, if it's an artist, we'll listen to their music. If it's an actress, we'll watch her movies.
Do you just drop everything when you have booked a guest? Like, how much time do you commit to just researching and consuming?
Every minute that I have. So sometimes, you know, you don't have that much of a lead time. Like maybe you're able to confirm somebody and shoot it in a matter of like 48 hours. You know, like, but if that's what I have, then whatever. Then I'm not going to.
You drop everything possible, and you just boom, consume everything.
Well, you have to, and I think too, as the show's grown, you know, now there are like more and more expectations. Like it's funny because like at the beginning when like stuff was getting 15,000 views, you were like, whatever. But then like there's part of you that almost wishes, not that I want to say that, like not that I want the show to fall off, but like now I already know that like millions of people are going to see it. So I can't embarrass myself on a stage that big. So it actually like ratchets that up. And then two is, you know, the viewer experience is always different because we have such a wide array of personalities, you know, because it ultimately is just the wings, the hot sauce, a black background, and a bald guy. So to keep that going on a longevity level, people's expectations only get higher. They see something and then they need to see something different or see something better. Otherwise, it's just going to stay and eventually it's going to fall off. So I always feel like as the show has gotten more popular, like that process has actually gotten more intense.
Interesting.
To a point that I don't know if I can.
Sometimes you have to like manage your time because as someone who's now dabbling in interviews, doing what we do here, I'm trying to think of myself more as like an interviewer and less like a comedian who's trying to be funny when I'm sitting here across from somebody. So part of the challenge that I have is like time management. So you find a 3-hour podcast, you can't listen to the whole podcast. You don't have enough time, right?
Or do you?
No.
Or do you? But like, where do you find your nuggets generally? Do you?
So what I'll do there is like what's good about the podcast is you can play that at 2x. So like, you know what I mean? Like
really,
I can play it twice as fast. So I can just put my headphones in and like on my walk to work, like I actually can crank out that podcast or like whatever. Like at the when I get home or whatever before I go to bed, like I actually can crank out that podcast or that book on tape or what have you by just like cranking.
You're going to consume it all in its entirety.
Well, here until like, you know, you can find these nuggets. Like I think what I look at too is like at this point watching so many interviews like in research, I'll look at body language as much as I talk about like what's being discussed because like sometimes you can see in maybe like an interview that isn't great that like that person doing the interview is just leaving a lot of change on the table. Like maybe they'll like ask something, but because they're just thinking about the next question and because like this is just some sort of formula, like they're not really looking at the guest. So like you can kind of see where like maybe they like perk up a little bit and then they're like on to the next question. So the person's kind of like, oh, like, you know, like you can kind of see like maybe they kind of wanted that topic to be explored a little bit deeper. Like I'll just put that topic and that person together, see if I can find like what has been said about it, what's being said about that thing, try to put together some sort of like Hot Ones style question around it. And that's sort of like, you know, just in as much as like finding these random truffles in the ground, like at the same time, you're kind of like looking at what other interviewers leave on the table too.
So interesting.
And I think too that like I need to know that because there's so much that can happen on the spot and so much that you need to improv in that time. And I have to like really know that person and think about that person and make that person a box. I'm almost like interviewing that box because I've done just as much research and Chris Schoenberg's done just as much research as we have sort of just this like armchair psychology.
Interesting. Do you have an interview philosophy, like some kind of guiding principle that you find helps you?
I mean, I think it's just you know, you look at what's interesting to you at some level. I think that's like 30%. You think about your audience to a certain degree. And then, you know, I think that like what people like about Hot Ones is it's just a naturally humanizing experience, you know? So it's not like taking the celebrity, which by definition is, you know, these people living this unattainable lifestyle, you know? And then like taking it down to just a normal level because like, you know, if we want to talk about like internet famous or what, you know, like just whatever, it's like normal people. And I like, I like when people are just, you know, I think that people that live in that spotlight, they like when people are just being normal to them. They don't like being treated necessarily like they're up here, for, you know? And so like in the process of like the wings and then contextualizing a question, that's part of the philosophy. I'll circle back on that. You can just take it down to a more human experience. And that's what people like watching it and feel connected to it. I was going to touch on something there and just this, where did I go? I got into that weed chocolate.
Sean shows up. He's like,
love that.
Oh my God.
In LA, it's so amazing to go in these stores and stuff. I'm like a kid in candy store.
I don't like weed, but
I'm always shocked with the products with weed here.
That's what I'm into.
Amazing.
Like the products.
Everybody
like,
I
churros?
know, everybody I'm related to blazes hard.
Yeah.
And
Every
I've seen
time-
some wacky new shit.
Every time we go to a friend and hang out, I end up consuming it by mistake.
Oh, right, because you'll just like go into a pantry and then you're like,
like we were at our friend's house and we just grabbed juice drink from the fridge.
Fucking juice, like nothing's safe anymore.
Yeah, no, I like I'll have like a pomegranate juice and it will just look like pomegranate.
Yeah, I
juice.
even look on purpose because I know there's a chance and I still missed it.
And every time I think it's happened actually twice in the past year. And every time it happens, we're like, we got to split.
Right.
We gotta go home now.
It's going to be that bad that we need to go home. I need to leave this party.
I like to just dabble because it'll take the edge off a little bit. But yeah, like if I'm gonna commit, then yeah, for sure I need to not be in public. On a podcast.
I can't fuck. I can't fuck with. I can't fuck with weed. It just makes me paranoid. I wish I enjoyed it as much as I see people enjoying it. I wish that all the time for myself. I see like there's like so relaxed apparently, but when I take it, it's the opposite of relaxation.
I think for me, it started off, I was like a very relaxing thing. And then like just over the years, it's like, kind
when
of
you have
a neurotic
more shit knocking
thing.
around.
Yeah.
If you tell me, I'm curious about your process. Okay, if you were going to research Sean Evans, like I did,
You did a good job.
Where would you start? Thanks. I try. But how would you start? What would that process look like? Where would you start?
Well, it would just start with like a Google search and just trying to find out like the pillars of what makes them them, like whether it's like the music, whether it's the hobbies, whether it's like whatever. Find all those things first and just write all that down. Just put that all into a spot. But then what I find too is like social is a good place to go. You know, like just start at the bottom of somebody's Instagram and go all the way to the top because they're like sharing these milestones in their life. So you can kind of get a quick download on it. And then same with the Twitter stuff. But then I think like another thing that you should look at, especially with an athlete or a big star, is their local paper, because those are the people who are going to be covering them before anybody else. You know what I mean? So they'll end up doing those sort of like groundwork interviews. So I think like if you look at it in a chronological sense, that's helped me a lot, is to like start at day one and then end at where they are today.
That's cool.
Try to like put in all those things like as you see them pop up, and then chess game, mastermind some sort of interview around what you came up with.
You sew a consistent narrative. Do you try to do like a full narrative when you interview somebody, like a story?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that, but then you know you don't want to be locked into a convention so much. You know what I mean? Like there's that too. So then you start thinking that way, but then you also don't want to overthink shit either.
Yeah.
You know, because like
tough.
it is tough. It is always like a balancing act, because that's like sometimes you know you get so into it, you start like working it out. I look like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting putting together a question, and then you'd be like, well, if I ask this person that, they're going to be like, well, there's too many moving parts here, I don't even know how to answer it.